Hey guys, welcome back. We are looking at translating functions. And here's some 5 common functions and that we'll look at. Most of the questions will be these functions that y equal x squared looks like that. You should know that. Y equal x to the third looks like that. E to the x looks like that. And you can see the other two. And you just kind of have to memorize that. You might say, I can't memorize that, man. Daggum, that's too much. Well, if I were to ask you what that is, you would tell me a triangle. If I were to ask you what this is, you would tell me a square. If I asked you what this is, you would say a pentagon, probably. You memorize those figures so you can memorize these figures. Come on, man. All right, and so what we're looking at, again, those are the 5 functions. We want to focus on, what it would take to revert y equal f of x plus 1 back to y equal f of x. What would it take here? What would it take here? So we want to be able to identify in a problem like this what's been manipulated. Which variable must be manipulated to revert that back to y equal f of x. Okay, well, clearly that's x. This 2 has been subtracted from x. And so let's play that game for a little while. Keep in mind at Socrative, if there's a quiz that if I refer to problem number 2, I'm referring to that here at the video. Okay, so you might want to think about that. Well, that one is x as well. Some functions don't require parentheses or special symbols to make that minus 5 with x. It's an exponent location. All right, let's jump forward. There's the answer to that. Might want to pause the video and decide, but that's with y. We've got a lot to do, so let's keep jumping. That's clearly with x. I think we just did that one maybe. Might want to pause the video. Guess. That's with y. A lot of people will miss that and say, well, that's with x. No, it's not. It's with y. Okay, so when you have special symbols like absolute value, then or square root, something like that, then it's pretty simple to see that that minus 4 is with y, not x, because if it was with x, it'd be in the absolute value symbols. In a situation like this, when you don't have a specific value or function like the absolute value or the square root function or the e to the x function, and it's just got that f, that just means for any function. Well, this is with y. Okay, we have seen and decided that x would have to be replaced here to revert this back to y equal f of x. You may want to pause the video and see if you could jot something down to say, well, what would I replace x with? Well, the simple answer is that you would replace this x, with x plus 3 so that these 3's cancel, okay? And I think most everybody is going to interpret that right there as right 3. It's not what you see. You don't decide on the translation based upon what you see. You decide the translation based upon what you would replace to revert it back to the parent function, y equal f of x. Nobody's going to call what I highlighted here left 3. That is right 3. And that's what would happen to the function. Okay? That's just a repeat. And so it doesn't matter what the function is. If you subtract 3 with x, it moves it to the right because it's not what you see, it's what you would replace. So in the square root function, it goes right 3. In the e to the x function, that point goes over here, right 3. That's a special function because it doesn't hit the origin. And this function, the square function, we move right 3. It doesn't matter what the function is, you're going to move right 3. All right, there's the cube function, the absolute value function. Let's move on. We've decided that y must be manipulated or replaced in this problem because the minus 2 is not in parentheses with x. Well, you might want to say, well, what would I replace that y with? You might want to pause the video and see if you could jot that down. Well, it would be minus 2. I mean, we want these twos to cancel, and they do now. Okay. So we're not really looking, when we decide the translation here, we are not looking here. Yeah, we can look there. We can take a shortcut. Most people end up taking a shortcut, but it's really here. It's not what you see. It's what you replace. And when something, a concept, something, a translation, a stretch or a shrink is vertical, you replace what you see. That's what you replace it with. All right. And so it doesn't matter the function. That's just a recap that if you subtract 2 not with x, it moves the function down 2 spaces. Square root function down 2 spaces. The e to the x function down 2 spaces. Special function because it doesn't hit the origin. Sometimes it could be harder to talk about. The square function down to the parabola down 2 spaces. The cube function down 2 spaces. The absolute value function. All right, and so based upon what we just did, we should be able to identify an answer to that. So pause the video and see if you can do that. The answer is D, left 2. Again, I'm not going to do this every time, but it's what you would put into the function to make that back to the parent function, and you'd put in -2. Everybody's going to interpret this as left 2. Now, you've got to figure out how you're going to memorize or come up with that as you see specific problems. That's left 2. All right, number 9. See if you can come up with the answer. The answer is B. In this particular function, you might want to focus on that asymptote because in the parent function, the asymptote's the x-axis, and the only thing that's going to move that is going to be a vertical shift, and that's what we have here that we're going up to. Now, that point right there does go up to and hit right there. Moving on, see if you can guess the answer. The answer is B. That's right 2. Again, that would be y equal, and then I would put in an x plus 2. That is what you interpret. We're going to interpret that as right 2. Okay, so let's do this with a few more problems. Let's do a couple of shifts in the same problem. And so the way that would work out is that this is how we would read it. We would read that and that. We're going to read that as up 5. We're going to read that as left 3. And so for functions that hit the origin, we're going to take that point that hits the origin and shift it up 5 and left 3. All right, that one would be a little bit, when we get to the graphs, it'll be a little bit harder to interpret, but this is going to be right 5, up 7. Keep in mind on that's this particular function, you would want to focus on the asymptote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It would be right there. That's the only thing that moves the asymptote in the e to the x function is a vertical shift. All right, let's do a couple of these. It's got 2 shifts in it. All right, the answer is F, right 2, down 1. Number 12, see if you can guess the answer. It is E, left 1, down 2. And so on the parent function, you know, that inflection point on the parent function is what we're moving. And that's what allows us to put it right there at left 2, down 1. Left 1, down 2, excuse me. All right, number 13, parabola. You should be able to do that based upon your experience. The answer is G, right 2, up 1. Okay, that's pretty much it. Let's look at our cameo appearance. Let's see who it is. Lieutenant Uhura from Star Trek. All right, that makes me want to go watch Star Trek 4. I think I'll do that. All right, guys, thank y'all, and we'll see you later.